Your stupidity can't be cured even if you eat fish. I was coldly told by my mother since I was young. She always treated me differently than she did my sister. It was my grandma, a skilled cook, who took pity on me and took me in. Eating my grandma's cooking every day had a surprising effect on me. My mom would come to regret leaving me with my grandmother. My name is Emily. I'm a senior in a public high school. I'm not good at studying, but I enjoy going to school every day. My family consists of my parents and one younger sister. My sister, Sarah, is so good at her studies it's hard to believe she's my sister, always ranking in the top 5. Although she's only a junior, she's already set her sights on going to medical school and studies hard every day. On top of that, she has a slender figure and a cute face. She is almost like an idol. As for me, I struggle with studies, am a bit overweight, and suffer from bad skin, far from the cute idol type. My mom is always cold to me. You're really hopeless. It's a waste to spend on you, so you better go to a public high school, she would say. Her words were cold, but since it was true that I wasn't good at studying, I quietly accepted my fate and enrolled in a low-level public high school that anyone could get into. Really, I wonder who you got your stupidity from. My mom often said. It's a mystery to me too. Both my parents were good at studying. They have graduated from prestigious universities and then landing jobs at a publicly traded company, where they met and got married. My sister must have taken after them, being so talented. According to my mother, I'm the only black sheep in the family. From a young age, it was clear that my mother only doted on my sister. Normally, an older sister's hand-me-downs would go to the younger sister. However, in our case, my clothes and toys were always either cheaply bought from thrift stores or hand-me-downs. My sister always wore brand new, pretty clothes and played with new toys. I envied her, but as a child, I was too afraid of being disliked by my mother to say anything. My sister and I are nothing alike in personality or preferences. I preferred playing outside and often came home injured or covered in mud, which got me scolded. My sister, on the other hand, liked girly things, often playing house or with dolls. Sarah is so ladylike and cute. You could learn a thing or two from her, unlike you, a barbarian, my mom would say in a coddling tone. I was hurt by those words many times, but after being ridiculed and treated coldly so often, I got used to it. Sarah was spoiled and indulged by my mother, receiving delicious cakes and sweets I had never tasted before. Of course, I was never given any. Once, I asked Sarah to share. But she said, "No, Mom said you're too dumb to deserve sweets." Growing up, Sarah increasingly mimicked my mother's coldness and ridicule towards me. The only ally I had in the house was my father, but he was of little help, never standing up to my mother for me. Still, he never said anything mean and was always kind, so I loved him the most. My childhood was like that, and surprisingly, instead of becoming a delinquent, I grew up bright and straightforward. Yet, to my own surprise, I grew up to be bright and straightforward. I have many friends. I'm not good at studies, but I enjoy going to school. In fact, I feel more at home at school than with my family. Probably, the reason I turned out so well is largely thanks to my paternal grandma. My grandparents' house was nearby, and I often went there to play. Or rather, my mother would tell me to go to grandma's house, so I went often. Looking back, I think my mother wanted to go out with Sarah alone, which is why I was in the way. I loved my grandparents' house. Welcome, Emily. I made a cake today, let's eat it together. My grandma was always kind to me. She always made delicious homemade snacks and, noticing my worn clothes, would knit me sweaters, truly treating me well. Emily, are you always wearing these worn-out clothes because your mom won't buy you new ones? I couldn't say anything. Sensing my situation, my grandma didn't press further but continued to treat me kindly. My grandma and mom have never gotten along. They seldom see each other, but I've heard various stories from my father. They were supposed to live together originally to help with raising the children, but my mother flatly refused. We were supposed to live together, but my daughter-in-law refused. And yet, she hardly does any housework or child-rearing. Emily, you're always welcome to come over to Grandma's house. I truly loved my kind grandma. When I visited my grandma's house as usual in my freshman in high school, she looked at me, continuing to gain weight and suffering from worsening skin problems, and expressed her concern. What do you usually eat, Emily? There are foods good for acne, you should ask your mom to cook them for you. My mom rarely cooked and, saying it was a waste of money, would only give me cheap sweetbread. Eating sweetbread every day made me gain weight and worsened my acne. I knew it wasn't good for me, but I was hungry, and I'd get scolded for eating anything else from the fridge. My lifestyle was like that. Meanwhile, Sarah, perhaps due to her metabolism, was thin and had clear skin. My mom seemed to care about Sarah's health, giving her nice salads and side dishes from department stores. It saddened me that even our meals were differentiated, and during family meals, I would stuff my mouth with sweetbread without much chewing and quickly retreat to my room. When I entered high school and faced my first autumn, my grandma unusually came to our house. We got a lot of salmon from relatives. Since we can't finish it all, I brought some over. Salmon is good for the body, and I wanted you two growing kids to have some, she said, bringing fresh salmon. However, my mother responded with annoyance. Mother-in-law, this is troubling. My kids don't eat fish. It'll just go to waste if you bring so much. I don't dislike fish. It's just that we never had grilled fish at home because my mom doesn't cook. Oh, don't like fish, huh? Fish is good for both the body and the brain, Grandma said, looking disappointed. I couldn't stand seeing my beloved grandmother disappointed, so I blurted out. I like fish. I want to eat it, I said. At that moment, I could feel my mother's sharp glare. Silly girl. Your stupidity won't be cured by eating fish. Don't say unnecessary things and go study. You're the only failure in this house. Whose stupidity did you inherit, I wonder? My mom ranted. Hearing this, my grandma angrily said, Madison, have you always treated Emily like this? It's none of your business. It's because of this child's failures that I'm suffering. She truly is a failure. I think she might even have a developmental disorder or something. I was used to my mother's sarcasm and didn't think it would hurt me, but being called developmentally disabled was truly saddening. My grandma became even angrier. How can you say it's none of my business? She's my dear granddaughter. How can you, her mother, insult and treat her so coldly? Stop lecturing me. I didn't choose to become this child's mother. My grandmother, trembling with rage, had reached her limit. Enough. I'm appalled. You have no right to be a mother. Emily cannot stay in a place like this. Emily, you'll live with me from now on. Following this argument between my grandma and mom, I moved to live with my grandma. I went straight to my grandma's house, and my dad brought my belongings later. He apologized while patting my head with a sad look. I'm sorry this happened. I didn't want to make you sad. I liked my dad, the only ally in my family, so I didn't blame him, but he seemed sorry. Given my mom's temperament, if my dad had tried to intervene, she would have taken it out on me. I thought it was fate that it ended up like this. Your dad is kind, but he's a bit timid. He loves you a lot, Emily. Even today, he was crying, asking me to take good care of you. That wife of his is strong-willed, selfish, and self-centered. Really, I wonder why he ever married her. I listened silently, unable to respond. And so began my life with my grandmother. Grandma wakes up early. She woke up at 5 a.m. every day to prepare breakfast for me and Grandpa. I was amazed at the breakfast she prepared. Grandma, this is amazing. Such a feast first thing in the morning. It must have been a lot of work. Thank you. Grandma's meals always included a soup and 3 side dishes, even for breakfast. Breakfast also had a wide variety. That morning's breakfast included a vegetable-rich soup made with chicken stock and eggs, freshly baked bread, ham, and a nut salad. I was worried at first if I could eat all of it, but it was so delicious that my appetite kept growing, and I ended up eating everything. Grandma, this is amazing. Everything is so delicious. I've never eaten anything this good before. As I was moved by the delicious breakfast, Grandma looked puzzled. Are you that surprised? I thought this was normal. What did you usually eat at home? I usually didn't eat breakfast. Nothing was prepared. On days I wanted to eat, I'd just toast some bread. Mostly, I just ate sweet bread. Hearing this, Grandma sighed, that mother of yours. Breakfast is very important, especially for someone growing like you. Here, eat up well and go to school with energy, she said, serving more ham and eggs onto my plate. Grandma also prepared a lunchbox for me every school day. I was moved by this lunchbox too. It was packed with homemade sides, colorful and luxurious, and my friends would say, "That looks delicious." When I lived with my mom, I never had a lunchbox and always ate sweetbread with discount stickers. On days without sweet bread, it was a bag of chips. I had never eaten a homemade lunchbox before, so I was truly happy. Dinner at Grandma's was, of course, delicious too. We had brown rice or multigrain rice, meat and soup full of ingredients. And although fish was often served, there were meat dishes occasionally as well, offering a wide variety of meals. Living with Grandma, I got to try many new foods for the first time, like quinoa and kale. "Grandma, you're really good at cooking. It's fun to try new things." Grandma laughed, seeing how moved I was at every meal. "This is normal cooking. It's just that woman who doesn't do anything. I wonder what they're eating at their house now," Grandma said, worried about my dad and sister. Living with my grandparents, I feel more vibrant than before. Both of them, kind and attentive, would praise me a lot as we talked about school over meals. Having always been in an environment where I was ridiculed and treated coldly, I was amazed at how comfortable and stress-free it felt to be here. I realized that this is what it means for a place to feel like home. My grades at school improved significantly. Even though it was a low-level school, my grades went up to the upper middle range. I was so happy that I immediately reported it to Grandma. "Grandma, my grades improved a lot. Maybe I've gotten smarter?" "Oh, that's wonderful. All the effort I put into cooking brain-healthy food was worth it." Grandma was very pleased and celebrated by cooking red rice and grilling a whole sea bream for dinner. I asked while having a second serving of red rice, "What did you mean by brain-healthy food earlier?" "Well, I'm not an expert, but foods like bluefish, nuts, spinach, avocado, and so on are said to be good for the brain. I just made sure to prepare a balanced diet with those ingredients." Indeed, Grandma's cooking included a balanced use of those ingredients. "Grandma, you were worried about me being dumb and cooked for me?" No, your grandpa and I are old, you know. We've been cooking like this to prevent dementia. It really paid off seeing your grades improve. Both Grandma and Grandpa are over 70 but are very sharp and energetic. Food is really important. What you eat makes up your body. Just eating a balanced diet of seasonal foods can keep you healthy and energetic every day. Since living with my grandparents, I've felt better overall. I wake up feeling refreshed and am always energetic. My acne has improved, and though I wondered why, it might have been thanks to Grandma's cooking. Reflecting on it, I realize how terrible my diet was when living with my mother. "What kind of food did your mom make every day?" "She didn't cook at all. Mostly, I ate sweet bread, and my dad and sister had ready meals or deli food from department stores. Sometimes it was just instant chicken noodles. That wife, having 2 growing children and feeding them like that is terrible." Grandma sighed in disbelief. Later on, I decided to go home for the first time in a while to show my report card. I hesitated a lot, but the thought that my mom might praise me made me want to go and show it to her. It had been half a year since I saw my mother and sister. "Huh? Emily, haven't you become cuter?" Sarah was surprised as soon as she saw me. "Hey, why? Did you do something?" Sarah, being a girl of her age. It seemed she was sensitive about looking cute. Indeed, I felt I had become somewhat cuter. Since living with my grandmother, I had lost weight, and my once chubby body was now of average build. My face, once covered in acne, was now clear. Even my hairstyle had changed, having gone to a salon with my grandmother. A stark contrast to when my mother used to randomly snip at it with scissors, deeming salon visits a waste of money. While we were talking, my mother appeared. I immediately showed her my report card and said, "Mom, look. I've gotten a bit smarter." "What are you misunderstanding? Just because you got decent grades in such a low-level school doesn't change the fact you're a fool." Expecting praise was foolish of me. She coldly replied, without a hint of a smile. That was it. That was always my mother. During this exchange, Sarah kept asking me, "Hey, tell me how you got so pretty. I'm jealous." Sarah was naturally beautiful, but as a girl her age, she was curious about the secret behind her sister's transformation. It was a pleasant change to be spoken to like this by my sister, something that had never happened when we lived together, but my mother didn't seem pleased. "How long are you planning to stay?" "Sarah has important exams coming up, and we can't have stupidity rubbing off on her." "Get out," she said, pushing the report card back at me. There was no need for her to say it like that. I cried on my way back. Hoping for praise, my expectations were completely dashed, and I was coldly turned away. I realized there was no place for me in that house. Despite being my mother, why? I felt like a nuisance to her. That idea made the tears flow more. Crying, I returned to my grandparents' house, where my grandmother saw me, looked sad, and hugged me. "Oh, what a thing to happen." I cried loudly in her arms. After calming down a bit, Grandma spoke to me. "We were going to tell you when you turned 20, your dad and I had decided. But I think it's better to tell you now. Listen carefully, okay?" I didn't understand what she was about to say, but seeing her serious expression, I listened intently. "Emily, the people you've thought were your mom and dad aren't your real parents." "What?" "Your real parents are our son's childhood friend and his wife." Grandma continued, revealing a truth I had yet to comprehend. "Your real parents got into an accident while your mom was pregnant with you. Your dad died, and your mom barely survived, but both were in a critical condition. They managed to save you through a C-section because your mom desperately wanted at least you to survive. Your current dad, who was a close friend, was begged to take care of you as her last wish. On her deathbed, she pleaded with all her might, and your current dad swore he'd raise you to be happy." "Is that really true?" I couldn't believe it immediately. "It's true. You look a lot like your deceased parents." Then my grandma continued. "When we decided to take you in, Madison was totally against it. She couldn't stand the idea of raising a child that wasn't hers, suspecting maybe you were the result of an affair. But that's just not possible. You really do resemble your deceased parents. Here, let me show you some photos." She brought out an old album. There were photos of my dad when he was a child, alongside his childhood friend. They might have been high schoolers, too young to tell for sure, but I thought they somehow resembled me. "These are your real mom and dad. If your dad has any more recent photos, you should ask him to see them. In the end, he insisted on adopting you, but I think Madison has never really accepted it." Hearing this, I somewhat understood. My mom's attitude towards me was probably because I wasn't her real child and felt like I was forced upon her. The sudden revelation stirred a mix of emotions in me, feelings I couldn't quite understand. "Your real mom and dad were really looking forward to your birth. They had even decided on your name before you were born. Emily was the name your real parents gave you. You were born out of pure love." Tears wouldn't stop. I've always felt so out of place. I thought it would have been better if I hadn't been born. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I'm truly sorry for all the pain you felt. You were a wanted child. Even though your real parents are no longer here, to me, and to us, you're a precious, dearly loved granddaughter." My grandmother hugged me tightly as she cried with me. I had spent my life trying to be liked and praised by my mother, always watching her moods. Realizing I didn't have to do that anymore lightened my heart a little. The next day, my dad came over. "I'm sorry for keeping this a secret." Dad bowed to me and then showed me photos of my parents on his smartphone. There was my dad, tall and intelligent looking, and my mom, with a gentle smile and beautiful. "Dad, can you send those to my phone?" "Of course." He shared many memories of my real parents. "I'm sorry, Emily. I promised to make you happy when I adopted you, but I let you go through so much pain. I'm sorry for being such a father." Dad apologized, truly looking remorseful. After that, I continued living with my grandmother. Graduating from high school without pursuing further studies and instead getting a job at a local video editing company. My sister successfully got into her first choice medical school. Apparently, as my dad told me, after I showed my report card that one time, my sister's attitude towards our mom changed. She probably realized that mom's behavior and neglect were not normal. My mom, deeply affected by my sister's coldness towards her, became withdrawn. "Sarah might find it tough being with mom like that. You should bring her over for dinner sometime," my grandmother suggested, so my dad and sister came over for dinner. 4 days later, they visited. Congrats on getting into med school, Sarah. Thanks. Wow, sis, you look even prettier? Our conversation was more lively than when we lived together. Well, I guess. Actually, losing weight, clearing up my skin, and even becoming smarter, it's all thanks to Grandma's cooking. Really? How come? Seeing the dinner Grandma prepared, Sarah seemed to understand. Grandma's amazing. Omega-3 fatty acids from fish, antioxidants from fruits and vegetables, vitamins, and minerals from whole grains. Perfect. No wonder your skin's better and you're smarter. Just like a med student to say that. Isn't it great? We laughed together. Unlike before, when Sarah was influenced by our mom to treat me poorly, now she could talk to me normally, without any influence. I was so happy to be able to laugh and talk with my sister like this. As we were enjoying dinner, the doorbell rang. When Grandma opened the door, Mom burst in with great force, exclaiming, "What are you all doing?" "Well, we're having dinner." "Why are you eating here? I'm all alone at home." Mom raised her voice. "You didn't come out even when we called you, so we left a note on the table, didn't we?" "What? Just because I'm sick and can't cook, you're doing this to spite me? Are all of you being mean to me on purpose?" "Mom, you've never cooked before. And who's really being mean here?" Sarah said coldly. Mom didn't respond to that but glared at me and said, "Emily, ever since you came to this house, everything's gone wrong. Everything's been messed up. My dear Sarah, who used to be so sweet, now talks back to me. And it's all thanks to my hard work that her exams went well, yet why does she treat me so coldly without any gratitude? Emily, it's all your fault." Sarah was just growing up and realizing how abnormal Mom's behavior was. "Mom, it's not Emily's fault. You've always been mean to her and treated only me specially, which I hated. Even when I was working hard on my studies, you never made a single delicious meal, so when you say you've raised me with hard work, it doesn't really resonate with me." Sarah continued eating Grandma's delicious food. "Maybe you should try studying a bit after eating Grandma's cooking? It's really delicious. If I could eat meals like this every day, maybe I'd be able to study better too." "Sarah, why would you say such a terrible thing? You have no idea how much I've struggled." Mom trembled with anger. Grandma calmly responded, "What struggle are you talking about? Spoiling Sarah and being cold to Emily, not even cooking properly, what are you even saying? It's not thanks to you that Sarah passed her exams. It's because she worked hard herself. It's all because Emily is a failure," Mom shouted. "Mom, it's okay. I know that I'm not your real child. That's why I'm a nuisance, why you can't love me, why you're cold to me, I understand." "What? Eh?" Both Mom and Sarah exclaimed in surprise. "So, you knew. I raised you even though you're someone else's child. Be grateful. Your dad could have had you from an affair. I've been putting up with this all along. I've told you over and over again that's not true," Dad said, sounding exasperated. "If you were so doubtful, you should have done a DNA test," Sarah suggested, changing Mom's complexion. "Didn't you want to do a DNA test because you were pregnant when you took Emily in, afraid of what would happen if you had to do a DNA test for the child you were carrying, Sarah?" "What?" Everyone was shocked. "I've always thought so. I know about Emily's parents. It's obvious Emily doesn't resemble my son or Madison." "But Sarah, how come you don't resemble my son at all?" "That's absurd. Madison, is that true? Of course, it's a lie. You just don't like me and are making things up. Enough now." Grandpa, usually quiet, spoke up firmly, fixing a sharp gaze on Mom. Then Mom collapsed to her knees and began to cry. "I'm not at fault. It turned out Mom had an affair with a married man, and Sarah was the result. Mom didn't know whose child it was until birth, but thought she could manage regardless." "It's a lie. So, I'm not related by blood to Dad, Emily, Grandma, or Grandpa?" Sarah was frozen in shock. Dad said quietly, "We're getting a divorce." "Why? It's all in the past. It shouldn't matter." "It's not just about the past. It's about everything you've done and your lack of remorse. I can't think of anything but divorce." I had never seen Dad so angry. "Sarah, I know it's a shock, but your mom and I are getting a divorce. It's up to you to decide who you want to stay with. Well, I don't want to be with Mom. But I'm not blood related to everyone else. Sarah, it's okay. I'm not blood related either, but Grandma, Grandpa, and Dad are all still my family. That's right, we're all family here. If Sarah wants, we can all live together in this house. Grandpa said, and Sarah nodded through her tears. After the divorce was finalized, we started living together with Dad and Sarah at our grandparents' house. Sarah was understandably shocked at first, but she's much better now. She feels happy that eating Grandma's cooking every day has greatly improved her health. As for Mom, she lived in her apartment for a while but eventually couldn't afford the rent and had to move back to her parents' house. However, returning under such dire circumstances, her parents were furious. She was disowned, and her whereabouts after that are unknown. Dad once received a call from her wanting to reconcile, but of course, he refused and immediately blocked her number. As for me, when I mentioned Grandma's cooking to a colleague at work, they became very interested, leading to us broadcasting the recipes through videos. The series featuring my youthful grandmother's recipes, presented by a young woman, quickly became a sensation, especially when my young and model-like sister joined the show. Although Sarah eventually graduated from video streaming to become an internist at a university hospital, she continues to live a healthy and active life. I married my colleague from work, and we're expecting our first child soon. Grandma, when the baby is born, you'll have to teach me how to make baby food. Leave it to me. I'll make sure to prepare something delicious to help them grow up healthy. Grandma and Grandpa are still as energetic as ever. Our dining table, surrounded by everyone, remains joyful, delicious, and warm, just like always.